Hey Beacon, welcome home to your Bounce Back Blueprint Community podcast, where you are challenged to be, do, and have God's best as you thrive on your journey from setback to success. I'm your Bounce Back guide, Tiffany Huff Struthers, and I'll be guiding you on the journey by sharing tips, tools, and the tea on how I was able to bounce back from escaping death, healing from heartbreak, and finding hope in homelessness. And then I wrote an award-winning book all about it. And shout out to God, ever since I was courageous enough to share my story, my life and the lives of women around the world have been forever changed. And as a member of the Bounce Back Blueprint community, I'm called to teach you to do the same. So grab your journal and let's build this blueprint. Hey Beacon, before we dig into building the blueprint this week, I have two things for you. First, I want to let you know that this episode of the podcast is being brought to you by the Bounce Back Blueprint community. Yes, the Bounce Back Blueprint community is open and you are welcome to join us. We are on Facebook and you can go to facebook.com/bouncebackblueprint, or you can simply click the link in the show notes and come on over and join us. The second announcement is, of course, I want to bless you with this week's review and remind you, if you haven't already, to please take a moment or two and leave a review, because when you do, you are creating the space for other beacons and the opportunity for them to find this podcast and be blessed as you are, and as well be part of this community. This week's review comes from Free Life Mama. Shout out to her. And here's what she has to say. Love this show. So many women are sitting on their stories out of fear, but this show teaches you how to get out of your own way in order to share your story and jump right into your purpose. So many women are going to be unleashed through this podcast. So good. Thank you so much, Free Life Mama. I would just like to say that I receive everything she has to say, and I'm praying that you who are listening right now will be encouraged to share your story and jump right into your purpose with every episode, and this one is no exception. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Clapping is like one of the very first things we learn to do, right? When you're a baby, you learn patty cake, you learn to clap, you're always saying yay. When it's someone's birthday, you clap and sing happy birthday, right? But at some point, we stop clapping. We stop celebrating ourselves. We stop celebrating our accomplishments. And part of it is because we allowed other people to determine when we clapped for so long. So if you think about it, when you're a little baby, right? People clap when babies start sleeping through the night. Like if you're a mom or a dad and you're getting up with your baby through the night, when they start sleeping all night, you celebrate. When they go from just drinking milk to drinking cereal in their bottles, we celebrate. When we get our first tooth, we celebrate. You know, when they crawl, when we walk, when we go to kindergarten, preschool, 5th grade graduation, my son's graduating from 6th grade next week, it will be a celebration. We clap, right? And this pretty much goes on through high school. For some of us, it goes on through college. But after that, there's no one really telling us what milestones are worth celebrating. And so if we haven't consciously been considering when we should or why we should celebrate ourselves, then we stop and we continue to look for cues from outside of us to know when we're supposed to celebrate ourselves. We continue to look for validation from other people to say, you did a good job, you should clap. Right? And when other people don't clap, then we start questioning whether or not what we did was enough, whether it's good enough, whether we're pretty enough, whether we should do it the way they said we should do it. And it causes us to get stuck. And so I wanted to just share, because I had to catch myself in the past week. You know, there are people, when you start to do certain things, people who have been in your quote unquote front row for so long that you expect that when you get to a certain point, they'll be celebrating with you. But when you get to that point, you learn that those people were really only in the front row. They bought the ticket to sit in the front row to really see you fail. They thought you were going to tumble. I mean, they thought everything was going to crumble. So they're not here in the front row to celebrate with you. They're here in the front row to point out all of your mistakes, to tell you why it's not going to work, to tell you why you're going to fail. So you can't expect, just because someone's been there the whole time, for them to be celebrating you. And you can't wait for someone else to celebrate your accomplishments before you celebrated yourself. Because here's the truth of the matter. Some people just don't know who you are, right? And I don't say that to be prideful, but the bottom line is this. You're a divine creation because you are God's child. So if you're a divine creation and you are honoring the God that is within you, then you have to celebrate who you are, because in doing so, you're celebrating God. Some people, though, have never been exposed to divinity. Some people don't know the divine when they see it. And so they can't be expected to clap for you when they don't even know what they're looking for. Sometimes you have to, not even sometimes, but you have to get into a position where you start to clap for yourself. Because here's the thing, you teach other people how to receive you. You teach other people how to respond to you. You teach other people about divinity, what it looks like, how it feels, the experience that is created when they're in the presence of the divine. And so if you are not celebrating and clapping for yourself, not out of pride, but as an act of honor, right, to the God that is within you, then they may never know how to clap for you. You have to do it for yourself, right? You can't keep looking for validation from other people, because sometimes they just don't know any better. And you can't get caught up in what they aren't doing. You can't let your feelings get hurt. You can't take it personal. You have to forgive people on the forefront, because some people just don't know any better. And that's not saying that you should be over tolerate people's ignorance, but you have to go in with some foresight and know that some people just don't get it. And here's the other piece. Some people just are not for you, right? Because you're still becoming the person that God created you to be. And as you become, you unbecome. So as you unbecome, there are people who were there who were clapping for the person that you are no longer, the person that was only a part of your growth or your transition. And so guess what? As you unbecome that person, some of those relationships and some of the expectations of those relationships have to unbecome too. Everybody doesn't go with you. When you unbecome, when you go into the cocoon, you don't take anybody with you. And when you come out a butterfly, you don't hang with the caterpillars anymore. There's so many other butterflies out there that recognize your beauty and recognize that flying is not weird. I forget who said it, but there is a saying or a quote that says, only caged birds think there's something wrong with birds who fly. So if someone is not positioned and purpose to fly, you cannot expect them to celebrate your soaring. You can't expect them to celebrate you when God elevates you, when you start to go higher, because they don't recognize they think you're out of order. That's why you have to clap for yourself. That's why you have to celebrate yourself. Stop waiting for other people to do it. And I almost got caught up in it in the past couple of weeks, thinking that certain people would stand with me, thinking that certain people would support me, and it didn't happen. There were crickets. And I'm watching and I see that they're supporting other people. They're clapping for other people. They're doing things for other people. But the reality is that people get caught up in the hype. And what is divine is there is nothing hype about the divine. It's not fake. It's not for pretend. And so people attach sometimes to things that they think are going to put them in the limelight, that they think will put them in position, but they're wrong, right? So all you could do is pray for them, because they don't recognize that they're clapping for crap. There's a difference between there's a difference between putting yourself in position to be elevated and recognizing that you're divinely in position to be elevated, because someone else's mountaintop might just be the valley of what God has for you. But if you're so busy caught up in them clapping for you at their highest level, when their highest level is just the ground floor for you, then you get stuck. And you can't let yourself get stuck waiting for somebody else to elevate you. People just don't know who you are. And if you know who you are, you have to be celebrating yourself. And you can't just do it sometimes. Everywhere you go, you need to be celebrating yourself. Because again, you're a divine being. God is within you. And there is not a time, there's not a moment, there's not a second when God does not deserve to be celebrated. So it's not about pride. It's not about arrogance. But it is about bold confidence. And it is about showing people the truth of who you are, because they need to know. And if you are mistreating yourself, don't expect other people to not follow suit. Period. People are going to follow suit. You show people how to treat you. And this, clapping for yourself is ultimately about divine self-care. So it's not just about posting a picture and saying, look what I did. It's not just about getting your nails or your toes done. It's not just about going to the barbershop, but it's about honoring who you are and the divine in you everywhere you go, right? It's about maintaining your truth. And that has to do with what you put into your body, what you're feeding off. So what you take in with your eyes, what you listen to, what you feed yourself, literally through your mouth, but it also has to do with the environment that you create for yourself. So if you keep taking your divine being into the dirt, into the dustpan, into the trash bin, then they will never recognize the divine in you. They won't see that. They'll see you assimilating. When you assimilate to who others will clap for, then you minimize the divinity in yourself. So stop assimilating and stop withholding your claps to accommodate other people. That's not what God would have for you to do. That's not what God would have for you to do. You can't be saying people weren't there for you and people weren't supporting you. If you continue to allow them to support you where you were, then they're never going to move forward and start to support you where you are. So when you have unbecome. Stop feeling like you got to go back for other people's claps. You don't. When you learn to walk, you don't stop walking intentionally and go back to crawling just so somebody will say, oh, look, she started walking again. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. What you can do is go around the people who are crawling and show them how to walk. But it's up to them to get up and walk. You can't keep getting down to accommodate people. You have to stop assimilating and stop trying to accommodate people. A clap for yourself. If you're walking, walk. Because the natural progression is either to run or fly. It's not to go back. So I really, really want you to give yourself permission to have the bold confidence that God created us to have. He gave us a command in Joshua chapter 1, verses 6-9, and it says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous, right? He wants us to be bold. He wants us to be courageous. And part of that, I believe, is to honor his presence within you by honoring yourself and clapping for yourself and being okay knowing that you are performing for an audience of one. And as long as God is pleased, drop the mic. I want you to really consider how hard you've been on yourself this year because of the seasons and the transitions and the needs to pivot. And also, as we talked about a few episodes ago, which I'll link in the show notes, really reevaluating your front row and considering maybe it's time for you to get some new friends to elevate your friendships, your immediate circle, so that you are surrounded by people who will both challenge and encourage you. And if that's what you're looking for, then I want to once again invite you to join us in the Bounce Back Blueprint community on Facebook. And you will get both challenged and encouraged. There will be opportunities to laugh, and I'm sure a few to cry as well. But we will be going deeper into the topics discussed here on the podcast and more. So run on over and join us after you leave your review. So I'm not going to hold you. I'm going to let you go. But before I do, you already know I'm going to leave you with this. God is not going to play you. But if you aren't willing to clap for all that he has created you to be and to do, then I can assure you, you are playing yourself. Be blessed, sis.